Hello, everybody. DMGeezerjim back here. Happy New Year, first and foremost. Trying to get, we're going to get going and continue around the cosmic wheel with our Planescape exploration. Wizards of the Coast released Planescape multiverses and all that kind of cool stuff. The box set, the new setting in early October. Letting things kind of settle in. Talked a lot about Planescape and some of the other formats, but I wanted to take the fifth edition publication, which would be Sigil and the Outlands. Let's look at that right quick, if you don't mind. Here, the Planescape's Adventures in the Multiverse box set. Let's get on to some art. There we go. Came with full content talking about Sigil in itself, Sigil in the Outlands, Mort's Plane of Prey, Turn of Fortune's Wheel. So the main interaction between players and DMs from the 5th edition point of view is going to be the Outlands and the Gate Towns. Each of the Gate Towns connects to a specific outer plane. Real quick, we'll go ahead and pop over to the Outlands map. And this was a real, hats off to the 5th edition. As much as I'm an old school guy for content, I do have a lot of love and respect for the new map. It's a pretty map. Very, very attractive, kind of draws your players' eyes to events here and there. We're kind of getting back into the, ooh, that's cool, I want to see that kind of a thing with our mapping versus what we've seen in the past. It's just either trees or forest or hills. So there's that. Well, anyway, each of the gate towns will connect to an outer plane. Each of the outer planes is steeped in celestial, divine, divine is the best way to say, whether celestial or fiendish, divine energy that's coincides with a specific alignment. Today we're looking at Bytopia via Tradegate. So let's kind of zoom in, into Tradegate. Now, understand first, Bytopia is considered a neutral good plane with lawful tendencies. They don't necessarily care much about everything being perfectly ordered and on a daily structure, but they lead orderly, slightly independent, but always positive and productive lives. Tradegate leads into the twin realms of Bytopia, as it's called, basically a sandwich realm. When you look up, you see the layer above you. When the layer above you looks up, they see the layer above them. There is no up or, I guess, up and down depends on which layer you come into, right? So we'll get to the specifics on Bytopia before too long. So Tradegate, let's just kind of kick in and see what the 5e version is saying. The gate destination is the twin paradises of Bytopia. Primary. Oh, before we go too far, we'll be referencing the 5th edition content through D&D Beyond. It's going to be the same as the books. It's just easier to look at nice and quickly. And I will also be comparing it to the 2nd edition pertinent content. In this case, we'll use a player's primer to the Outlands, which is the 2nd edition equivalent of the box set that we Sigil and the Outlands for 5e. And honestly, most of this stuff I'll say right now, we're probably 85 to 95 percentile in accuracy. Wizards did a pretty good. I guess you can't really say they did a good job of copying my homework when they own the old homework as well. But it is a pretty good job of copying my homework and make it look a little different. And in some cases they did. Again, you kind of follow what I'm saying. So if you own the 2nd edition content, don't feel obligated to go with the 5th edition content because it's close enough to not matter. Straight up. If you're using the 5th edition content and you want to know more, the 2nd edition content is sitting there waiting for you to pick up and waiting for you to invest in. And that's kind of what we're doing with this video series, is saying this is more. But so anyway, we got the player's primer to the Outlands up. Bytopia is described in the planes of conflict, the neutral planes, the ones that are in between law and chaos. Remember, it's not so much good and evil in the Outlands, although that's important, in Planescape, although that's important. Law and chaos are deriving factors. So the neutral goods and the neutral evils, kind of sitting in the middle between the law and the chaos, are considered the conflict zones that each of the outer power, the main power struggles, law and chaos, are fighting for these planes. Bytopia sits in the neutral good with lawful tendencies, so it's listed in planes of conflict. And lastly, we'll be looking at the entry for Bytopia in the Planescape box set. The Planescape campaign setting, a DM guides to the plane. These are our primary sources Force 2E. So, shit, let's get into it, right? 5th edition. I'm not going to read word for word, but both versions are about the same. It's a hub of decent common legal trade and production. Finest quality craftsmanship. You're not going to get any bad products, but you're not going to be able to pull down any shady deals. There's no active, thriving black market, but everyone from across the multiverse, across the Outlands and the Outer Planes, travel through or have representatives in Tradegate, because Bytopia is one of the most the workshop of the realms. The workshop of the Outer Planes might be the best way to say it. You know, your best craftsmen, your dwarven pantheons, your gnomish pantheons are stationed in Bytopia. That's why it's, for them, its production is good, creation is good, hard work is good. We're not so much worried about, you know, the order of the world of the multiverse. As long as you're doing your job and doing it well, things will work out right. That's kind of the overriding attitude within Bytopia, and that carries out to Tradegate as well. So yeah, all the different trades. If you're looking for a trade hub for interplanar play outside of Sigil, obviously Sigil's kind of a little bit more different story entirely. But your players can find themselves in Tradegate over multiple points of your campaigns, whether they're pursuing sandbox style exploration, needing to resupply, where they have to go pick up a MacGuffin special item for your quest from any of the folk within Sigil or any of the greater powers outside of the Outer Planes, or if it's a delivery type of a thing, you'll be able to use Tradegate relatively well. Due to its reputation for economic prosperity, Tradegate has become the target of raids, which is a recurring group of treasure-hungry Zorn. So there are some outer plane forces that will pop up here and there, but it's not so. Keep in mind, it's not the Wild West. It's not like the Dakar market or anything silly like that. It's a prosperous, stable, good-aligned economic hub. They may not ask questions when you come by the repeating crossbow of celestial and demon slaying +5 Vorpal to hit, but they're going to write your name down so that if you did kill the celestial Vorpal +5 with the crossbow, yeah, this dude bought it from me. That's the kind of thing that you'll be dealing with when you're in Tradegate. So dungeon masters kind of keep that in mind. Players kind of keep that in mind. There hasn't necessarily been a map of Tradegate, even if we look back at the 2nd edition players prior to the Outland. There were some of the towns were mapped. Tradegate is not one of them. But it is described. It's burged, a walled city of grayish stone shaped like a star with a great open plaza in the middle. And if we go ahead and look over at the map itself proper from 5e, that aligns with the description of it. So you're going to build a large star-shaped town. The population in 2nd edition is 20,000. That's a city. Depending on the edition of D&D you're in, that may not be much, or that may be a lot. You know, Waterdeep has a pop of 200K, and we play around in Waterdeep like it's not a big deal. So Tradegate's a small, manageable city in regards to most things. Good aligned, which means you're not going to have a bunch of rampant murderers, even if there's a bone devil there to pick up a shipment of stuff legally. They will behave themselves, and Tradegate will behave themselves, but certainly there's going to be a couple guards wandering around behind them. Cool? So the Tradegate 2E and 5E are almost identical. There are a couple things, and I'm going to be honest with you, there's, other than industry-aligned adventures, there's not a ton going on in Tradegate. There's a little bit more going on the other side in Bytopia itself, but even there, it's one of the more peaceful, one of the more stable planes out of all of the outer planes. So, you know, I'm not going to try to build up and waste too much time and say, oh my God, it's the source of great adventures. No, it's a prosperous, economic, peaceful type of an area. But there are some cool things that are presented on the other side of the gate. So let's get there. Enough blah blah on about the boring side of the gate, you know. The 5e version will took how do we access the gate. The whole point of this is these discussions. Remember, your players are getting in here. You're getting out into Planescape. You've left Sigil. You're running around in the Outlands. Eventually, or right off the bat, if you're playing the published module, what is it? The Fortune's Wheel. Let me get back up there real quick. Apologies. If I have it, I should talk about it, huh? Sources. Turn of Fortune's Wheel, I believe. Yep, Turn of Fortune's Wheel. Waste all that time looking for it and remembered it. But anyway, that particular adventure will send your party along the outlands through a tour of some of the gate towns. So if you're playing that module, every situation where your party approaches a gate town, they're going to be staring at an access point that takes them to somewhere else. Somewhere weird, somewhere dangerous, somewhere cool, somewhere possibly boring. But you have to be prepared for either no, you can't go through that gate, or okay, my players are going through the gate. So that's what we're talking about here. Our players are going to find the gate, they're going to walk through the gate, and what are we going to see on the other side of it? And hopefully I can save you a little bit of time if you can decide that, yeah, that gate, that one's boring. Let's make sure it's boring for the players so they get back out. Or that one's awesome and I can play in 5 campaigns there if I want to. Spoiler, Bytopia is not the latter. You can have 5 campaigns that will make stops in Bytopia or Tradegate, but it's certainly going to be challenging to stage a full campaign there. So visitors will struggle to locate the gate to Bytopia. It's a living portal that appears as a bearded bar called the Trade Master, which is what we're seeing in the picture. His long recurved horns are easy to spot, gilded appendages embellished with dangling coins, etc., etc. You must barter with the Trade Master to enter Bytopia. The many-horned bar knows everything as an interested traveler owns down to its last coin, including abstract holdings and objects of sentimental value, memories, keepsakes, and songs. He'll charge a high but fair price tailored to an individual's wealth to get through the portal. Those who attempt to swindle the Trade Master or threaten their way into Bytopia might be banished to some remote plane with a stamp of the Barar's hoofs. So that's a pretty potent gate. Let's see what the 2e version is. I might like the 5e version a little bit better. I don't honestly remember. The gate. Yep, same thing. Master Trader, ornate carved hoods. So this is the exact same thing. Copy my homework down to the T. I think that's why it didn't strike me as too far. But yeah, so both versions have the same thing. DMs, make sure it's accessible. Don't make your players go on this crazy, super wild hunt to find the Master Trader. People are using access. I say using, now we're using a person, accessing Bytopia through the powers of the Master Trader constantly. So try not to don't squirrel him off in the high tower behind 5,000 guards. That just doesn't make sense for the comings and goings into Bytopia. It is a trade's paradise. There's people going to and from. There could potentially be a line. You know, he could be sitting there bored out of his mind as 17 Modrons are reading, that need to get through, or followed by 24 pissed off dwarves, and your players staying at the end of the line. You can have some fun with that, the access point. But yes, Tradegate in itself is represented both sides, on both sides of the coin is the same. A busy place, humans and gnomes make up most of the population, very industrious, but not necessarily lawful. They're not going to get up and drop their stuff because you're walking out on the wrong side of the road, like you'd see in Arcadia or Automata into Mechanus. It's not like that. People mind their own business. Begging is frowned upon, vagrancy is punished, and theft is bad. That's kind of the big no-no in Tradegate in Tradegate and Bytopia is stealing. This is a land of hard work, the salt of the earth type folk. The good farmers, the good miners, the craftsmen, those kind of people. And those dudes don't cotton kindly to theft. So if you've got the sticky finger guy in your campaign, be prepared accordingly for the character that tries to steal everything that's not nailed down. Reaction to that's going to be probably more severe in Tradegate and Bytopia than any other of the realms. Even Mount Celeste, just like you'll steal a pearl and the angel will be like, do you really need that now? I mean, is that the right thing to do? I'd probably would have given it to you if you asked for it because it's a nice thing. It ain't like that in Tradegate. It's not like that in Bytopia. Cool? So enough about the town. Let's get to the plane. And unfortunately, 5e, as usual, is a little bit lacking. Plus side is, we got more stuff to buy, so maybe they'll start giving us some manuals of the planes again, which would be cool. But for now, we have it. even if it isn't in D&D Beyond, even if you didn't buy the box set, it's there. Whether through Google Foo or old resources, it's not hard to figure out. Bytopia. Excuse me. The two layers of the twin paradises of Bytopia are similar yet opposite. One is a tamed pastoral landscape, and the other is an untamed wilderness. Yet both reflects the plane's goodness and acceptance of law and order when necessary. Bytopia is the heaven of productive work, the satisfaction of a job well done. The goodness flowing through the plane creates feelings of goodwill and happiness in creatures dwelling here. So the optional rule for Bytopia, just to kind of lean into that for 5e terms, is at the end of each long rest taken in this place, a visitor that is neither lawful good nor neutral good must make a DC 10 wisdom saving throw, because these are the two accepted alignments in Bytopia, or native alignments, I guess I could say. Remember, it sits on that border. On a failed save, the creature's alignment changes to lawful good or neutral good, whichever is closer to the current alignment. The change becomes permanent if the creature doesn't leave the plane within 1d4 days. Otherwise, a creature's alignment reverts to normal after 1 day spent on a plane other than Bytopia. Casting Dispel Evil and Good also restores its original alignment. So that's a pretty cool, yet kind of a hardcore optional rule. So that's what the DM's guide, by the way, is where we're referring for the 5e interpretation of the will of Bytopia. So we'll flip back over one last time to the 5e version of Tradegate. The optional rules and regional effects, the time and cost required to craft non-magical objects, are halved in Tradegate. Damaged buildings and roads and structures are repaired by its populace within 1d10 days. There's no major effects on your players here per se, more than just an emphasis on the industrious nature of the city of Tradegate. Cool. So Bytopia is giving us in 5e the opportunity and the option to flip our players into literally change their alignment without their, no saving throw, minimal save. Oh, did they get a save? I don't think they got a save. Let's look again. Yeah, DC 10 whiz. So that's not super bad. If they just have rotten luck, they're going to change. But let's get to the nitty gritty, so to speak. Tradegate, the second edition primer to the Outlands gives us a little bit more information in regards to the government and the connection of Tradegate to some of the second edition plots. This is additional information above and beyond 5e. Certainly doesn't affect any of our 5e content, but follows along with a lot of the 2e storylines that were built in with the entirety of the second edition Planescape production. So the Grand Bazaar is the center of the town, the 4 Parliament buildings. You find the trade guy, and poof, click, you made a good deal. And he's going to send you on over to Bytopia. Libra Benevolence, the Planes of Conflict book, calls it the pastoral splendor of Bytopia. Real quick, a couple excerpts. The dual layers of Bytopia, called the Twin Paradises by Primes and Leatherheads. Now here's a place, too, actually, where a cutter can find a good job or a comfy home. The 2 layers, Dothion and Shirok, are covered in rolling hills, lofty mountains, and verdant forests. The wicked storms in Shirok can get nasty enough to blow over a bar, but this place still isn't as wild or as feral as the Beastlands. It's pastoral, even downright woodsy, if a party appreciates such things. Unlike the Beastlands, there's lots of towns and trading posts, but nothing's about credit. If you don't have cash, you're bless you, you're kind of SOL. You get the business end of a broom or shovel, so to speak. Theft is not something that's here. The layers of Bytopia look more like a sandwich. If a cutter on one of the layers looks straight up, they'll see the ground of the other layer with mountains, rivers, and towns all sitting above their head. It says someone took up one of the layers and slapped it over. And kind of a picture of it here is an abstract view of it. The same thing as reflected in the Planescape original box set. You can feel safe and not be bothered by petitioners at the same time, because Bytopia is a place where a being's left to themselves until there's a good need to be bothered. Folks here help each other when they need assistance and leave each other alone when they don't. It's a pretty sociable place. It's a place of layers filled with mountain streams, forests, and all the other stuff of wild nature wild and natural world, but it's got towns and all that. So all the information is complementary, consistent between all of the editions that we have. And if you take a look at the 4th edition Manual of the Planes, it's going to reinforce it as well. 3rd edition Manual of the Planes as well. Just so you know, without going into too much detail. Apologies here. Oh no, that's bad. Well, shit, I'm cat out of the bag. I use a lot of PDFs, all legally purchased, but I have included reviews and information on my Manual of the Planes from 3E and 4E as well. If you're looking to improve upon and add to planar, outer planar, extra planar, multiversal type gameplay within 5th edition, invest in some of these older books. They're definitely worth it. They add a little bit more content. More content is better. Whatever your edition is, the Outer Planes is yours to play with. They are yours to turn into your own inventions. As long as you understand the theme and the concept of what's being presented there, you can do what you want. They're almost all infinite. They're almost all going to feature regions of alien, unusual, or unorthodox. Almost all, all of them unorthodox stylings that you can really customize for whether you want to build a small pocket dimension or try out a city idea. The Planescape is the place to do that in. So anyway, but the main thing to understand is the daylight is shared between the 2 layers. The nighttime is shared between the 2 layers. When the night falls, there's no source of daylight. There's no sun per se. There's just radiant sunlight as present. You can't have a sun in the place, where the Outer Planes, suns and stars and all that are a completely different concept here. But at night, when your players were to look up at the opposite layer, the twinkles of the lights of the towns above them, a large city above them would twinkle as if it was a star or constellation. A little bit more lore here. Obviously, there's some magic conditions that are part of 5th edition or 2nd edition that don't apply to 5th edition. Limitations on spells, effects on conjurations. For example, necromancy, life-sustaining spells are enhanced, and damage or killing spells are diminished. This is different spell classes in 2E. 5E has the same thing with the spell rules, or the schools of magic. Same thing. Something you may or may not care about, but you'll find more information about that. This is similar to the option to shift your players' alignments while they spend time on Bytopia. By the same token, spells of different things are going to be increased or diminished. A mending spell would take 30 seconds instead of a minute, hypothetically. So, you look at those kind of things as you lay into it. Certainly you have spell keys and power keys. 2nd edition concepts, if you could find a spell key, you could cast spells that were that you weren't allowed to cast with the spell key. If you have the power keys, it increases powers of your spells. Higher level concepts described best in the box set. Not going to spend too much time talking about them. But the information's here if you're one of those guys that wants to invest in it. The inhabitants of Bytopia are primarily going to be dwarves, gnomes, humans, hardworking type folks, halflings. But the powers, the gods, the deities, whatever name you want to use, 2E always calls them powers just to avoid some stuff. The sole greater power, the ones above ones, the creators as it were, is Garl Glittergold, the leader of the gnomish pantheon of deities. All of the gnomish deities, except for one of them, live on Dotheon with them. You have Berovin Wild Wander, Flandel Steelskin, and Seojan Earthcaller. Erdlin the Crawler below, this gigantic, super crazy-ass mole rat, is an evil power, intermediate power, who is tied to the gnomish pantheon, and they keep him tethered here to Shurrock rather than letting him gain power in one of the other realms. So you do have a taint of controlled evil here in the presence of Erdlin the Crawler below. Now, unfortunately, there are connections with Erdlin's lair in Shurrock, the other, whichever one you have. Remember, 2 layers, Dotheon and Shurrock. Dotheon is where the good gnomes live. Shurrock is where the one bad gnome god lives. Okay. and Erlin's got connections to the other realms. You have some other powers if you're using old historical pantheons. You have Egyptian pantheon here, Japanese pantheon, and some of your certainly Forgotten Realms as well. Tefnut, the Egyptian goddess, is here. Amatsumara and Inari, Japanese pantheons. Ilmater, Kirin Jalith from Ilmater from Forgotten Realms, Kirin Jalith from Kryn, Baravar, Cloak Shadow, Geralt, and Eiderhand. A handful of different gods are here, including Hephaestus, the god of Forge from Greek mythology, stored here as well. So you have a little bit of a connection over to your mystic odyssey of Theros if you're tying into that. One lesser power dwells here, the foolish Greek titan Epimetheus, the afterthought who wanders both layers, kind of trapped in his own little thing. So then you have your proxies, your petitioners, the factions. The main faction is the ciphers, the keepers, the record takers, the takers as they are. No, I'm sorry, the ciphers are the transcendent order, and also the takers are here as well because of finance, because of the industry. Things are being bought and sold. So what else do we have that's living here? Any plant and animal, almost any creature that inhabits temperate areas of prime worlds can be found in numbers of Bytopia. Certainly creatures that dig, burrow, otherwise live in the earth, which means you can still have some encounters here. You got Alnkegs, you've got Bullets, you've got some of the other, certainly a lot of elementals can be featured here. Giant weasels, giant badgers, things like that. But it's not an evil place. So you're not going to have any real undead presences. Certainly any encounters with Fiend are going to be encounter-based or story-driven, not necessarily a wandering group of Vrox flies in on you from the mountain above. No. Could be Manticore, could be some of your more beast-type things. But watch your alignments and watch your sources when you're messing around in Bytopia. Because it's kind of a vanilla, pastoral, hard-working area. If anything's going to show up that's going to mess that up, the power's going to stomp it. So it's not, things that aren't native to that region, that type of ecology, aren't going to feature in the plane very well. So, tree ants live here. There are a couple different special Planescape specific creatures that didn't make the cut for 5e. But, to counter what I said, those are natives. There certainly can be the presence of every and any creature in the multiverse of D&D here, but outside of neutral good creatures, they're here on a specific reason. They're here for specific business. Whether that's driving your player's story or whether your players are interfering with their business, that's up to you to decide. But a wandering solar from neighboring Mount Celeste they're not just hanging out, they're here for a reason. So keep that in mind. Ethics are unique little strange psionically gifted lemurs that can kind of enrage people around them. It's a self-protection thing. You're too busy fighting something else to even try to eat an ethic, so they're interesting little critters. Nylaths are these gigantic flying fish that I think you saw the picture of those. That would be a Nylath. The middle layer between the two, feeding on anything that happens to fall or get stuck in the gravity well. Speaking of, your players can move between the two layers, but it's done physically. Physically being flight until they hit a point where gravity flips and then they're falling until they start flying, catch control and fly. Or if they climb along these mountains. There are a few mountains that connect the two layers together. Lore-wise, a handful, just a smattering of them. Your world, your rules, if you want to have 15 or 20 of them within sight of each other, go right ahead. But yeah, typically the transit points are the gigantic Mount Everest type things that connect to another Mount Everest type thing. So you don't have a dozen of them in a row. But they are navigable to the point where once you finally connect to the other one, there is a flip of gravity, where you'll kind of, the more well-established mountains, for example, have stairways and pathways and roads that are built all the way up to the point where it flips and then it's flat on the other side. Both sides have a flat point. to where as soon as you hit this last step, you fall, and you fall like 10 feet, gently landing on the flat, and you continue walking down the other side of it. Interesting. Fun concept. A little, not as, I wouldn't worry about being too cumbersome. You just remember gravity flips at a certain point in your plane, and account for that depending on what's below them when gravity flips. And that could be ugly. So, Dothion, the land of pastoral industry. One really cool thing that's listed here is the Baku graveyard. Baku are Japanese spiritual elephant type beings. Not necessarily something that's existing now, but we have enough. What is it? We got the Maleficents and the shit. The elephant dudes our players can play, so it's not far to connect it from there. The Golden Hills is a nice domain where the gnomish gods are hanging out. Very little goes on here. Great place for trading, role play, information pickup, drop off, gathering. The problem, I guess that's the problem with gameplay within Bytopia. If you shift towards combat, it's going to end quickly and decisively, and very rarely in the favor of the instigator. So your players are not often going to be found on the side of a defensive standpoint here, because most people mind their own business. So combat here needs to be situation and story driven. Murder hobos will be on the receiving end of a swift kick. It's just the way the realm works here. So kind of keep that in mind. It's a very quiet, peaceful, mind your own business situation. But if you mess up other people's business, then everyone gets in your business, if that makes sense. So the Gemstone Burrow tunnels under the Golden Hills are infinite, and they hold the entire gnomish petitioner's population within. And the entire any gnome who enters the realm of the Earthcaller gains the benefit of animal friendship here. And within the burrows, there is a rumored to be the gnomish pantheon's treasure hoard, or the gemstone portion of it. So, I mean, yeah, you got greedy players. And here's the flip side of that. If you're a creative DM and you want to challenge your players, they're playing a little bit more of an evil campaign, sitting on that side of the wheel, Bytopia might be the perfect target for their hijinks, because it is quiet and it is pastoral. But they have to be smart and strategic about moving around the layer and the plane and causing issues. They may have to go steal the 15th smallest diamond of Carl Glittergold's layer, because he may not notice that one. Okay, go. And that's still going to be something like the size of a freaking watermelon, but still. The Mithril Forge, where some of the greatest weapons and armor are forged in all of the multiverse. If you want to allow magical improvements, that's another thing that you might be able to use Bytopia for as part of your quest, as part of your world, is if you're into item improvement, if you're into take this item and these components and go here and combine them, and you want something to be a little bit more involved, then you can, Bytopia fills that place. The Mithril Forge within the Golden Hills, again, be at peace and be cool with the gnomes before you go here. But once you get here, Flandel does his flaming hammer stuff, and Steelskin's best proxy, Gilania Hearthforge, will be able to build whatever your players want. Any gnome who stands bathed in the light of the heathen Mithril Forge gains the effect of a ring of fire resistance for the day. Things like that are kind of coming into play here. So a few other little sites and locations that are talked about. Again, nothing super deadly, nothing super dangerous. Shurrock brings a little bit more. Center Spire is a description of one of the connecting points, if the only connecting point, up to you. But here's a Center Spire. It gives you a good description of moving along up and down. The mechanics go into that. We kind of touched on that already. The lair of the Adamantite dragon, excuse me. One of the, I think they're around in 5e now, but Merciella, the Adamantite dragon, the goddess of them, has taken over Shurrock, and is the self-appointed guardian of all that is good in the area of Shurrock. And she hangs out with air sentinels, air elementals, and keeps everything as safe as she can within the lair. Now, some rules to go along with that. The Ridiculous Tower is kind of a flip. This is one of the places that breaks the rules. You can't use these spells, but in the Ridiculous Tower is one place that you can use these spells, and these spells go crazy with. The tower collapsed due to the effects of Epimetheus, the Titan that we spoke about earlier, but the ruins are still there, and sometimes the actual tower appears on its own again. Pyramid Mountain rests Windwrath, the domain of the Egyptian goddess of life, Tefnut. We talked about that a little bit ago as well, so you have a major power that's affecting weather here. And honestly, guys, that's kind of it. I hate to sound kind of about Bytopia, but it is kind of The plus side is it's a safe place for your players to go. You can give them a non-combat oriented thing. Flip side of that is if your party's kind of dipping around on the dark side of things and you need to give them targets for quests or targets to get into hijinks, Tradegate and Bytopia lends itself to that. There is a little bit of danger on Shurrock with Erdlin, the crawler below, and some connections to the Abyss. But by and large, in my opinion, Tradegate and Bytopia end up as kind of destination type things. You go here for something or to pick something up or to, it's a point type of a thing, a pickup type of thing. I don't personally see Bytopia as a long-term, even midterm campaign setting. Lots of reasons to go to Bytopia. Lots and lots of reasons to go to Tradegate. But that's what I refer to as when I say it's a destination thing. So as a DM, if you're getting into Planescape a little bit, I would definitely make sure that you're familiar with Tradegate from the 5th edition standpoint or 2nd edition standpoint. And there's not a lot to know about Bytopia, if I'm being honest with you. If you need, it's there for you to use more than anything else. Don't necessarily think about it as something you need to know, something you need to plan for, something you need to build out. It's something that you can use. Okay, I need my party to find something. For example, the Spirit Bowls that are featured in the Something Wild adventure from 2nd edition. If you're following that by the book, you'll actually deal with Tradegate and Faunel, or Tradegate from Faunel to Tradegate to enter Bytopia to find out the source of the Spirit Bowls. There's these beautiful gem creations that the gnomes just think are really cool. We don't care what's being done with them, but it's good workmanship, so here you go. That's just one published example of an option that you get when you're, for using Tradegate, using Bytopia, using those locations for that. But yeah, by and large, that's kind of it. But hey guys, again, thank you so much for joining me. We're going to continue our way around the Cosmic Wheel. We started over here in, I believe we started in Rigus in Acheron and made our way through Automata to Mechanus, Fortitude to Arcadia, and Excelsior to Mount Celestia so far. So today we are finishing up the 9 o'clock to noon stretch with Tradegate to Bytopia. Tomorrow we come back probably tomorrow we'll come back for Ecstasy, which is connecting to Elysium, and then we'll hit Faunel to Beastlands, so on and so forth. But yeah. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you've enjoyed this video. As always, I look forward to your interaction. Likes, follows, subscribes are appreciated. Comments. There's a lot of stuff going on here. I always feel a little bit bad because I could do a 5-hour video on I could do a 3-hour video, if I'm being honest, on Bytopia and Tradegate, covering everything that's there and providing some good information. But we're trying to keep things short and quick, so there might be things that I just kind of skated across. If you have questions about that stuff, let me know in the comments. If there's stuff that you want me to expound upon, please feel free to join in the discussion and put stuff in the comments. I check it regularly, and I look forward to feedback and discussions with you guys. As always, thank you for your time. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative. I'm over on Twitch Monday to Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time. Same tag, DMGeezerjim. You should be able to find the links down there on the YouTube page. If you subscribe to my YouTube page, you'll be able to find that cool stuff. And as always, Happy New Year to you guys. We're kicking into high gear, kind of get caught up, work our way around the outer wheel. So that way we can kind of get into some more specific sites and cool locations. The multiverse is big. It's an infinite multiverse. But that doesn't mean we're absolved of pretending there's no content out there. There's a lot of content out there that we can use. There's a lot of fun stuff that we can build around. And, thanks for joining me so far. And I hope you continue to join me on this exploration. Y'all take care. Bye.